Have you ever heard of a general so brilliant, so audacious, that he brought the mightiest empire of the ancient world to its knees? A man who crossed the treacherous Alps with an army of elephants just to prove a point. Today we're diving into the incredible story of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian commander who almost destroyed Rome. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a tale of genius, ambition, and a rivalry that shaped the future of Western civilization. Our story begins not in the heat of battle, but with a solemn vow. There he swore an oath of eternal hatred for Rome. This wasn't just childish bravado. This oath would become the driving force of his entire life, setting the stage for one of history's most epic conflicts, the Second Punic War. But why all the hate? Carthage, a powerful maritime empire based in modern-day Tunisia, and Rome, a rising republic in Italy, were like two heavyweight boxers vying for the same title, control of the Mediterranean. They had already clashed once in the First Punic War, which Carthage lost, ceding Sicily and paying a hefty price. For the proud Carthaginians, and especially for the Barca family, this was a humiliation that could not stand. Hamilcar spent years rebuilding Carthaginian power in Spain, grooming his sons to be the instruments of his revenge. After his father's death, Hannibal, now a charismatic and battle-hardened young man, took command. He was a master strategist, beloved by his troops, and he had a plan. A plan so daring, so utterly insane, that no Ramung would ever see it coming. In 218 BC, Hannibal made his move. Instead of launching a predictable naval invasion, he decided to do the impossible. He would march his army, a massive force of infantry, cavalry, and his famous war elephants overland from Spain, through Gaul and across the formidable snow-capped Alps directly into Italy's backyard. The Romans laughed. They thought it was a suicidal fantasy. The Alps were a natural fortress, a wall of ice and rock that had protected Italy for centuries. But Hannibal was not an ordinary man. The journey was a nightmare. His army faced freezing temperatures, treacherous mountain passes, surprise attacks from hostile tribes, and starvation. Soldiers and animals alike slipped from icy cliffs into the abyss. By the time they descended into the Po Valley in northern Italy, more than half of his army and most of the elephants were gone. He had started with over 50,000 men. Now, barely 20,000 remained, exhausted and frostbitten. From a purely logistical standpoint, it was a disaster. But strategically, it was a masterstroke. He had achieved total surprise. The Romans were stunned. Hannibal was in Italy, and the war for the soul of the Mediterranean had truly begun. The Romans, arrogant in their own strength, sent consul after consul to crush this upstart invader. But Hannibal outsmarted them at every turn. At the Battle of the Trebia, he used the freezing river and a brilliantly concealed ambush to inflict a devastating defeat. Then, at the Battle of Lake Trasimene, he set one of the largest and most successful ambushes in military history. He trapped a massive Roman army in a narrow defile along the lake's shore, shrouded in a morning fog. The Romans marched straight into the kill zone. The result was a complete slaughter. Thousands were killed or drowned trying to escape. In just a few months, Hannibal had annihilated 2 Roman consular armies. Panic gripped the city of Rome. The unbreachable walls suddenly felt very thin. The Romans, in their desperation, appointed a dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus. Fabius knew he couldn't beat Hannibal in a straight fight. Hannibal was simply too good. So he adopted a new strategy, a frustrating one that earned him the nickname Cunctator, the delayer. He refused to engage Hannibal in a decisive battle. Instead, he shadowed Hannibal's army, launching small-scale raids, cutting off his supply lines, and slowly wearing him down. This Fabian strategy was effective, but it was also deeply unpopular. The Romans were a proud people. They wanted a glorious victory, not a war of attrition. They mocked Fabius for his cowardice. They were itching for a fight, and in 216 BC, they would get one. 2 new consuls, itching to prove their mettle, decided to abandon the Fabian strategy and confront Hannibal head-on. They amassed the largest army Rome had ever fielded, an estimated 86,000 men. They cornered Hannibal near a supply depot called Cannae in southeastern Italy. The Romans had almost double Hannibal's numbers. The terrain was a flat, open plain, perfect for the Romans' traditional brute force infantry tactics. It looked like the end of the line for the Carthaginian general. This was the battle Rome had been waiting for. This was where they would finally crush the invader. But Hannibal saw an opportunity where others saw only doom. He devised a plan of almost suicidal elegance. He placed his weakest troops, the Gauls and Spanish infantry, in the center, allowing them to bow inward in a crescent shape. On the flanks, he positioned his elite, battle-hardened African infantry. The Roman plan was simple: punch through the weak center and shatter the Carthaginian line. As the battle began, everything went according to the Roman plan. Their legions surged forward, pushing the weak center back and back and back. The Carthaginian line bent, but it didn't break. The Romans, sensing victory, pressed deeper and deeper into the crescent, compressing their own ranks in their eagerness to break through. And that's when Hannibal sprung his trap. As the Romans were sucked into the pocket, Hannibal's elite African infantry, hidden on the flanks, swung inward, slamming into the exposed sides of the Roman legions. At the same time, his superior cavalry, having already routed their Roman counterparts, circled around and attacked the Roman rear. The trap was complete. The massive Roman army was surrounded. What followed was not a battle, it was a massacre. The Roman soldiers, packed so tightly they could barely lift their arms to fight, were systematically cut down. By the end of the day, as many as 70,000 Romans lay dead on the field. It remains one of the bloodiest single days of fighting in history. Cannae was Hannibal's masterpiece, a textbook example of a double envelopment that is still studied in military academies around the world today. After Cannae, Rome was on its knees, defenseless. Many of its allies in southern Italy defected to Hannibal's side. It seemed that nothing could stop him from marching on Rome and burning it to the ground. This was his moment. So why didn't he? Historians have debated this for centuries. Was his army too exhausted? Did he lack the siege equipment needed to take the city? Or did he believe that Rome's allies would all abandon it, causing the Republic to collapse on its own? His own cavalry commander famously told him, "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal, but you do not know how to use one." Whatever the reason, he didn't march on Rome, and that hesitation may have cost him the war. Because Rome, even in its darkest hour, did not surrender. It refused to negotiate. It returned to the Fabian strategy, slowly, painfully, grinding down Hannibal's forces in Italy. More importantly, Rome opened a new front. They sent a brilliant young general, Publius Cornelius Scipio, to attack Carthaginian territories in Spain. After conquering Spain, he did the unthinkable. He invaded Carthage's home turf in North Africa, forcing Hannibal to finally leave Italy after 15 long years to defend his homeland. The final showdown came in 202 BC on the plains of Zama. It was a clash of titans, Hannibal versus Scipio. This time the roles were reversed. Scipio had the superior cavalry, and he had a clever plan to counter Hannibal's remaining war elephants. He arranged his troops in columns with wide lanes between them. When the elephants charged, the Roman soldiers simply blew trumpets and opened their ranks, letting the terrified beasts run harmlessly through the gaps. The battle that followed was hard fought, but in the end, Scipio's tactical genius, inspired by Hannibal himself, won the day. Hannibal's army was defeated. The Second Punic War was over. Rome's victory was total. Carthage was stripped of its empire, its navy was dismantled, and it was forced to pay a crippling indemnity. Hannibal, the man who had terrorized Rome for over a decade, lived the rest of his life as a hunted exile, still trying to stir up enemies against his hated foe. In the end, with Roman agents closing in, he chose to take his own life rather than be captured, staying true to his childhood oath to the very end. Hannibal lost the war, but he won immortality. He pushed Rome to the absolute brink, and in doing so, he paradoxically made it stronger. Rome was forced to adapt, innovate, to build a professional army and a more resilient political system. The terrifying trial by fire that Hannibal represented forged the Roman Republic into the unstoppable Roman Empire. His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes our greatest adversaries are the ones who force us to become our greatest selves. He was the man who almost destroyed Rome, but in his failure, he ensured its destiny. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should Hannibal have marched on Rome after Cannae? Until next time, stay curious.